I remember back in my building days, I was building a simple LLM-based classification system. We just needed to route different tickets to different parts and like triage them and things like that. The best model we had back then was GPT-4o. And you'd think that to do classification, you just ask the model, give it classifications, and that'll be it. But the problem was that while it could kind of do that most of the time, it was so unreliable and it was making so many mistakes. And even if it's making mistake, let's say 1% of the time, if you scale it to many tens of thousands of tickets that you need to classify, then you end up with many hundreds of mistakes. So what we ended up doing is having to build a lot of scaffolding around it, such as, for example, we had to do maybe query the same ticket 3 times instead of once, or maybe 5 times. Then we had LLM as a judge, which would judge whether the classification was correct. We had to build multiple steps to maybe do multi-step triaging, where we do it in broad categories first, then narrow it down. And all of that is downstream from the fact that it just wasn't reliable enough. Not that it was such a hard task that only the best model can do it. It wasn't a hard task, but it wasn't doing it robustly enough, so we just had to build a lot of stuff. And then a project that I thought we were going to do maybe in a couple of weeks turned into about a 3 months long project. And that's the thing about the LLMs that are not quite top tier LLMs, is that not just that they're not quite smart enough, they're just not reliable enough. So that's on the developer side. So if I'm building AI applications, there's a direct relationship between how good the LLM is in terms of reliability and how quickly I can get the switch out. If it's very reliable, it could be one shot and it's done, I don't need to think about it too much. Or if it's quite unreliable, that I might have to build these complicated systems for me to build a system that is reliable. Another way of looking at it is that if you're a developer who is using it for coding, for example, I remember using Sonnet 3.5 for coding, and I know people really loved it, but for me it was so unreliable that it felt like, I don't know, maybe every 10th time it would do something so stupid and so ridiculous that it would just like break my whole app. And yes, I could maybe manage it better and do sandboxing and versioning more carefully and so on, but it just creates so much extra overhead that you have to actively manage and be very conscious and be skilled at managing it, that it just becomes, it stops a lot of adoption. So a lot of people who might be not as skilled or don't have a good, big enough business case or don't have time to get into it, they just don't use it. Or those who do end up using it, they get really stuck into building all of these different applications, different scaffolding, extra steps to make it more reliable. So what we're seeing now, and this is more from the kind of vibes that you get from using the models, is that right now I could be using Claude Code or could be using Codex, and I could pretty much not use Git to version the app if I'm just vibe coding a local app, and I'm not gonna screw it up. So right now I could pretty much get to a reliable app without doing anything else. I could just prompt the model and say, build me this, and it pretty much does it. Now it still sometimes goes wrong, but the difference between now and a year ago is night and day. Like now, I don't worry pretty much. I mean, still use Git and so on, but now you don't really need to worry all that much. And it's not just because the model is so much better at spitting out code. It's much more reliable at doing the thing that it's supposed to do and not just go off and do something random. Maybe this is not a professional advice for professional coders, but if you're vibe coding something, I think you're fine. Like most of the time, especially if I'm doing visualizations or data analysis, I don't use Git for that at all. just because it seems to be good enough. It doesn't tend to screw things up. I still do extra steps, such as, I make sure that it has the file where it does analysis save, so I could go back and look at it and edit it or reproduce it. But even that is less and less necessary. But the big effect of this is that while this might really go against what a lot of professional software engineers would do, and it really maybe me saying this sounds ridiculous, but this makes it so much easier for non-developers to start using this, and it's really reliability. It's not just that, or the code is literally better, but that the fact that you'll never end up in a situation where it just like blows up. But before, it used to happen all the time. I remember building just apps on the side with Sonnet 3.5 or some of the early OpenAI models. And yeah, you can kind of get there, but I remember getting stuck in loops for the whole weekend trying to debug something when they were just going terribly wrong. And it's not happened in the last 6 months, I would say, at all.